You're now tuned into our discussion segment, The Front Page. On the front page this morning, focusing on the start of the 2025-2026 academic school year. The 2025-2026 academic year begins today. Schools across Ireland are set for a full resumption of face-to-face classes. The Ministry of Education says it's all systems go for the new school year, despite the interruption of the general election. That's according to the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Casson Troop.
The reports I've got from my team that all roads lead to a wonderful academic year. We are very proud of our principals and administrators in our schools, our board chairmen and other members of the board have really been supporting the readiness activities on the ground. And so, operationally, it's really in the hands of our principals. And so they have been outstanding. A part of the work we did this year, we went around the country as technical team members, including our minister, and we visited all our regional back-to-school conferences. So we had 7 of them this year, right across the country, pulling out our principals, vice principals in some instances. And we just talked about the plan for the new academic year, and also we gave recognition for the excellence we experienced last year and just trying to inspire the principals to continue to work hard.
Dr. Troop was speaking on Nationwide this morning. On Friday, the Permanent Secretary says school grants and furniture have all been dispatched ahead of time.
You should not expect any complaints. We did very well in terms of getting the grants out, and you can check with our principals. We have improved significantly in getting the grants into our schools ahead of time. In fact, in one of our meetings with the Jamaica Teachers Association executive, they actually commended the ministry for how efficient we have been in getting the grants out. So we have been acting proactively in making sure that the grants are in the hands of our schools and principals so that they can do the preparatory work.
Dr. Casson Troop, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education. For a discussion on the start of the new academic year, we're being joined by President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, the JTA, Mark Malava. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Nationwide this morning. To begin, Mr. Malava, what's the word from teachers, administrators ahead of the face-to-face classes resuming this morning for the new academic year?
Well, we have not gotten any formal word as yet. As is customary, we do tend to keep our fingers on the pulse of our teachers and our school administrators at this time of the year. We have not gotten any adverse reports as yet as we commence the start of the new school year. A lot of it tends to be touch and go at this time of the year in terms of the nuanced issues that may arise and how we respond to it collectively.
And normally, what are those nuanced issues that may come up at this?
So some of those nuanced issues would be, for example, teacher shortage. There tend to also be resource constraints within the system. So you may have an institution that have not been able to get what they need to really commence teaching and learning. For example, furniture. So, for example, a school may have ordered furniture, but they have not yet to be delivered. So those would be some of the a couple of the nuanced issues that may arise at this time of the year.
Right, because we did just play a clip with the Permanent Secretary saying that grants for furniture went out pretty early. So she's indicating that there should be no issues in that regard.
Well, it's one thing to get the grant, but when you put in the order, because of the time, because of the fact that this time of the year there tends to be a higher than usual demand for furniture, you may have delays in delivery.
Mm-hmm. And you spoke about nuanced issues to include the availability of teachers for the start of the new school year. What's the word in relation to that? You might not have a full picture, but preliminary, what are you hearing?
It continues to plague the system, especially in the STEM areas, particularly mathematics, and the TVET areas. It continues to be a major challenge in the system.
Is it extensive you're hearing so far? Are you getting any complaints from particular principals, administrators?
We are getting complaints from a few principals about their inability to fill some of these vacancies. In other instances, unfortunately, they have been forced to take on less than qualified individuals just to fill the slot, on a temporary basis. It does create the challenges. I am aware that the ministry has indicated that there has been a sharp decline, in the number of teachers that are resigning. Unfortunately, the ministry currently does not have the capacity to properly monitor the teacher migration issue. But they have monitored it from the standpoint of teacher resignation, and there are other nuanced issues within the context of resignation. For example, teachers moving into other schools. Yeah. But the reality is that over time, what you're looking at or what you're seeing in terms of the pattern is that teacher migration continues to be a major concern to the system. And we are going to have to, as a system, determine how we respond to it.
And for those who have indicated so far, Mr. Malava, that the teachers for certain subject areas, you pointed to STEM, have resigned and they're having issues filling those vacancies. Is it that they got ample notice about those resignations? It came in last minute and they're trying to scramble now to see if they can find somebody to fill that post?
I can't speak to that, no. That wasn't a part of the conversation that we were having.
Okay. And have the teachers, the administrators yet worked out how they'll be able to manage those issues as we look now to the start of the new academic year? Is it that they'll be sharing teachers across different school campuses, trying to fill the vacancy as soon as possible? What's the workaround?
Principals have always taken a collaborative approach to some of those issues. They would do partner with other institutions from time to time. There are other internal things that they would may have to do. For example, merging of classes, and whilst they continue to recruit teachers. So there are different responses. It's never the ideal. None of those responses are ideal. They are stopgap measures.
We're speaking with the president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, Mark Malava, about the start of the new academic year got underway this morning. After the break, Mr. Malava, I want to get your perspectives on this new initiative, rolled out this morning, the rural school bus system, how you see it, if you've been getting any updates about the experiences of the students who went out so far this morning. Going to take a break here on the front page on Nationwide this morning and come back with more. Welcome back to Nationwide this morning. You're tuned in to the front page. On the front page, focusing on the start of the 2025-26 academic school year, having a conversation with the president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, Mark Malava. Welcome back to the program, Mr. Malava.
Thank you.
On the aspect now of transportation, the government has rolled out the rural school bus program system this morning. I did see some footage and some images as well from one of our reporters in the corporate area who has been seeing how things are going. Seems to be happening smoothly in the corporate area. We wait to hear an assessment of first day for the rest of the island at the end of today. But have you been getting any updates? Have you made any observations about the routes, how the rollout has got underway this morning?
No, we have not gotten any updates on that as yet. We are, however, monitoring the situation. We will be able to give a formal response to that initiative sometime later today.
But from the association's perspective broadly, what do you make of the program? Something like this finally a part of the Jamaican school system?
Yeah, we support the program. There are concerns that we have with respect to how it is that you're going to expand the program. There are concerns that we have in terms of how do you monitor the students effectively and how do you do the timely interventions during those monitoring processes. We are prepared to sit with the Ministry of Education. As a matter of fact, we have a meeting scheduled sometime this week. Mm-hmm. It's a matter that I intend to raise in terms of what our concerns are and have that deliberation as to how it is that we can make our contribution to improving the system.
You said you have some concerns in relation to monitoring. I did hear the transport minister, the government, indicating putting on CCTV cameras on these buses, having wardens as well, having an online system where parents can actually track and see where their children are on their way home or heading to school. Is it that you're saying that the rural school bus program needs more in relation to monitoring?
Put it this way. Yes, we are aware of those things, and so whether as to the extent in which they will be effective is another matter.
What do you mean?
Okay, now let's look at the issue of movement of students, particularly within the corporate area. There have been occasions, for example, where acts of indiscipline raise its ugly head. In terms of student violence, that sort of thing. How is it bringing the students into a cramped space may very well ignite certain fires that we do not want to ignite. But how is it that we are able to effectively monitor and do the timely interventions to get security forces, for example, onto those scenes to treat with those acts of indiscipline, especially when it reaches a high level in terms of violence. So these are concerns that we may have.
But don't you think that the interventions being made now might minimize that sort of a thing? And make it easier as well for the security forces to find out where the buses are, since you have a tracking system?
Yeah, man, it may minimize. We want to eliminate. And that's the ideal. And we are prepared to make our contribution in terms of the discussion as to how it is that we can even better improve the system.
What else is on that agenda, those concerns that the JTA plans to take to the table in relation to the start of the academic year?
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Malava, we're hearing you.
Yeah, you should talk just now. Go ahead.
Not a problem. I was asking, you said that you have a meeting set to happen this week with the Ministry of Education. And of course, you mentioned your concerns in relation to the rural school bus program that you plan to take to the table. I was asking what other concerns does the JTA or has the JTA identified?
Well, the nature of those meetings has to do with operations of schools. It has to do with as it relates to issues with respect to teacher issues. So those are some of the issues that we tend to take to those meetings. Of course, there are issues of resources and financing of education. So we do have those monthly meetings with the Ministry of Education, and we have the discussions around some of those items that may, and sometimes new items will come on the table for discussion and deliberation for action.
Here's a key area on the agenda for this academic year, Mr. Malava: strengthening literacy. The Education Ministry Minister, Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, said yesterday that literacy remains the top priority of the ministry. We want all our children to be confident readers at their grade level. It is for that reason we have timetabled reading in schools for grades 1 to 3 across the country, and we'll also be providing more storybooks to our schools to help increase literacy outcomes. How do you think the Jamaica Teachers Association can assist with this thrust now to ensure that all children are reading at their grade level?
One of the fundamental issues that are affecting many of our schools, believe it or not, have to do with resources. So hearing the minister speaking about those things, I welcome it. There must be, however, a concerted effort to treat with the issue of inequitable funding of schools, because at the end of the day, many of these literacy programs do require a certain initiative. There is a need as well to better align or realign the education system. Yes, I have heard, for example, what the minister said. I have heard pronouncements about students not being promoted if they don't meet the minimum requirements, and all of these are welcome. It is how you action it and how you implement it. We have to move from announcements and making announcements to actually getting to a point where the tire really hits the road, and that's where the issues are for me.
How does the literacy issue square with what you're identifying in terms of inequitable funding or resources to certain schools?
I actually spoke to it. What you're finding, for example, is that the inequitable funding of our schools have helped to contribute to schools not having the necessary resources.
Give me an example. Give me an example, a comparison, Mr. Malava.
All right. So let's look at a particular school in a particular area. Many of these schools, what you're finding, they get students of a particular type, and their literacy levels are below what their reading levels is not where it ought to be. Mm-hmm. Schools now have to respond in treating with these issues, in terms of doing the intervention, to get the students up to a particular level. If the schools don't have the resources to do this, then the intervention program will not be effective. And what you're finding is that many of our upgraded high schools have resource constraints. And what you're also finding as well is that many of these upgraded high schools are getting the students that are not where they are to do in terms of the literacy and numeracy. And that is where it ought to be treated with. At the primary level, it is also a major point of concern. Schools currently get, I believe, $2,500 per child at the primary level. This is woefully inadequate to treat with the resource constraints within our schools. Many of our teachers have to buy resources out of their own pocket to aid in the teaching and learning process. And we need to get to a point where we tackle the issues of inequitable funding, because in many instances it is holding back our schools.
I did ask earlier, I heard you identifying the resource challenges out there for some schools in comparison to others in relation to this whole matter of literacy. But I did ask, from an association point of view, how does the association see itself assisting in this literacy thrust that the Education Ministry is taking on now to ensure that every child is reading at their grade level?
Well, one of the things that we do, we have a seat at the table. We have those discussions with the ministry. We do the monitoring. We get the feedback from our teachers. Within the JTA, for example, we have various committees, including primary committee, secondary committee, and early childhood committee. Based on those committees, they have particular mandates, and they make certain recommendations. In terms of what they believe ought to be done. We carry those recommendations to the table when we have those discussions. In addition to that, we do also have various professional development sessions with our teachers to help them to upskill them with the necessary skill sets to drive teaching and learning in the classroom, particularly as it relates to literacy.
All right, Mr. Malava, well, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me this morning. I look forward to an update from you, perhaps not today, but at the end of the week, to find out from your members, the teachers, how the first week of school went and any gaps that you may identify that can be addressed by the ministry. But thank you so much for coming on this morning and speaking with me.
Thank you.
We are waiting on our reporter, Mahira Stewart, who was at the Halfway Tree Transport Center earlier to witness the rollout of the rural school buses from that particular location. Saw some pictures that is there material we can put up until he arrives?
We sure can.
Yes, I saw him in the company of the Education Minister, Dana Morris Dixon, the Transport Minister, of course, Darrell Vaz, and the Finance Minister was there, Favour Williams. I saw there was one video where he sent to us to tell us that at least one parent had hitched a ride on one of the buses, riding with their child on this first day of the new school year. But just for accuracy, the buses have CCTV.
Yes.
The buses have a warden on board.
Yes.
The buses can be tracked by principal from point A to point Z and all points in between.
Principal and parents.
Yes. So
Yes.
what additional security would you put? A policeman with a gun?
That seems to be it. I don't think anything else is necessary. It has just the right amount of security. Yeah, that you wouldn't get in the alternative, you know? So I don't think anything else needs to be placed on the buses.
All right. Well,
But
her intrepid reporting. My ears.
if there are other recommendations, they should be heard.
Mr. Stewart, good morning, sir.
Good morning, George. How are you?
I just want to tired already, youth.
It's been a long morning, George.
It's 7:47. He says it's been a long morning. Tell us where you are and what have you seen on your travels this morning, sir.
Well, I'm on my way back to Halfway Tree. I spent the morning going from the Halfway Tree Transport Center up to Papine. I was one of the first people to be on the brand new rural school bus for the government. So that was what I spent my morning doing, and it was a pretty good experience.
Give us some details, man. Spare no detail.
Okay, so most of the children that came on the bus this morning were going to Jamaica College, Mona Heights Primary, and Mona High School. So the bus that I was on was filled with those students. So it wasn't that much of a hassle in terms of getting them on. Obviously, we had Minister Vaz, Minister Williams, and Minister Morris Dixon on board as well. So there was a lot of fanfare around the first bus as expected, but once we got on, it was a pretty smooth ride, and on top of that, we even had a parent that followed their child on the bus, and I was able to speak to him as we were going through, and he was telling me about, basically, he thinks that it is a better initiative than what they have right now with the JUTC buses and the coaster buses. And one thing he highlighted is the fact that the children will have to stand. Because and when I was speaking to the children on the bus, they also told me the same thing. They were telling me, listen, sometimes to get to school on time, we have to go on a bus that's already overcrowded, and that they have to stand up when they're inside. So that was something that the parents specifically told me was something that they're happy for in terms of these new buses compared to what's going on right now at the moment.
Did they meet their rollout departure time?
Yeah, they did, and they met it by quite an early margin as well. I guess they started off earlier than they normally would have today, given the amount of people that they were probably expecting. But all the children got on time. As a matter of fact, it's funny because the Mona Heights students were actually getting worried because what the bus did was they'd normally stop on Hope Road to let off the Mona Primary and the Mona High School children near Jamaica College. But in terms of seeing that it was the first trip, this bus went all the way to Papine, took a stop, and then it brought the children at the gate as opposed to leaving them at the bus stop. So when they originally passed the normal stop, the Mona children were very worried. They were like, oh God, we're going to get to school late. But then after the Papine stop ended, they went straight to the gate, which is something they weren't expecting, but they were very grateful for.
How long did you spend in Papine?
It didn't spend too much. It didn't spend too long. It was about, I want to say, maybe 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a long stop, but the children were worried. but because they weren't keeping track of time. So in their mind, they need to reach school 7:40, and they don't even know what time it is. But they know that as long as they've passed their stop already and they're stopping in Papine, to them it means they're late. So they're very concerned. But once they got a hold of the time, they settled down quite well.
And from Halfway Tree all the way up and coming back, how long did the round trip take?
Well, it didn't take that long. I guess the best estimate I could give is probably around 30 minutes. There wasn't that much traffic out there, and obviously there were stops along the way. The first stop was Arden. I forgot to mention that earlier. Arden was the first stop. So we had students on there that were going to Arden. Then it was JC. Then we took the stop in Papine, which wouldn't normally be the case. And then after that, we went to Mona Heights. So this wasn't, I wouldn't use this as a normal route. This is a special route, given it's the first part of the rollout. But in terms of getting to Papine, it didn't take long at all. I'll probably say 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah. In terms of well, you did mention that one parent was there, so I wanted to get an idea of how many parents came to see their children on the buses. But you said the round trip took about half an hour. Given that it's very early, there wouldn't be a lot of traffic at that time. So maybe in the future, other buses could do the same thing in terms of how it and where and when it let off the children from Mona Heights and Mona High. But overall, this thing is now underway. The system on the bus for the children, well, there's no pay. I was going to ask you about the pay facility, but it's ride free until October. But did you see that machine on the bus? Are all the things that we were promised that would be in place? The warden on board, the fact that the bus could be tracked, were those things shown off on this maiden voyage this morning?
Well, there were definitely cameras. I know that was one feature that they were talking about a lot. I was of the impression that there's going to be one focusing on the driver, but they actually had four.
Four cameras on the bus?
Four. I saw four. So there's one in front of the driver, there's two in the middle, and there's one at the back that shows the whole view from the back. So that's one thing. Another thing I noticed, when it comes to windows, and this wasn't spoken about, but it's something I realized upon going on the bus, they don't go all the way down. And I thought something was wrong with it, why it didn't go all the way down. But apparently that's a safety feature to prevent the children from getting rowdy and trying to stick their head or stick their body outside of the buses. So they only come down like halfway, so it's not big enough for anybody to fit through, which I thought was pretty good. In terms of the cashless system, I wasn't at the front of the bus, so I can't tell you whether or not it was there, but I know that it's not something that they're going to use immediately because of the initiative that they have now in terms of the 2 months. So that's something I probably need to check back in. It's a very hectic morning.
I can imagine. Yeah, but how did the bus handle Mahiri?
The ride was pretty smooth, to be honest with you. I mean, Hope Road is probably not the best, it's probably not the best road to go off of in terms of its ability to handle rough terrain, because, I mean, Hope Road's pretty smooth compared to the other areas in the country where the bus is going to be rolled out. But in terms of the ride, I can say it was pretty smooth, it was pretty comfortable. I was sitting in the back, I was surrounded by children, and they were strapped in pretty well, so they had no complaints, and neither did I.
I know you're a man who assesses everything, so based on what you anticipated the whole experience would have been, notwithstanding the quality of the road that the bus is driving on, met your expectations, anticlimactic, room for improvement, what?
Well, I think it met my expectations. This is what was promised at the beginning, and obviously I've been following this thing from its inception to it finally being launched, and based on everything that had been promised, I feel like I saw most of it implemented in terms of things like the routes, in terms of the stops, in terms of the things like having the deans at the bus stops to ensure that children go in. Those are things that I think I wouldn't have probably seen today because it's the first day, but as time goes on, that's going to be implemented properly. Today was good in terms of showing me the fundamentals, but in terms of most of the promises, I think we're not going to see those until enough time has passed and people get used to the whole system.
Well, today was the easy one for you. You're going to have to go out there tomorrow morning again because you're going to have to go up to Golden Spring up in the hills. Yes, indeed, a further drive for you to see how the bus handles, especially with the corners to go up Stony Hill and to go further, all right? So this is you've gotten the easy part of the assignment out of the way.
Well, we're going to have to do the hard part tomorrow then.
Yeah, man. All right, thank you this morning.
Thank you, and thanks to the listeners.
Mahiri Stewart there, or a guy on the rural school. Well, from Halfway Tree to Papine is not rural at all. But yeah, he was a part of that maiden voyage this morning, which transported students from Ardennes, Jamaica College, Mona Heights Primary, Mona High, and it went all the way up to Papine in St. Andrew and back again. Do you have that video, King, of the parent on the bus? Let's roll it. Well, let's roll what you have, and I'll tell the listeners what is happening. Those watching on YouTube can see. So this is Dana Morris Dixon and Favour Williams, Education and Finance Minister, respectively.
Historic. The first morning on our school bus system, and our children are excited, the parents were excited. I just got to be on a bus that went from the Halfway Tree Transport Center up to Papine, and we dropped off several children along the way, and it was really a historic morning. They were happy. We are happy to be able to deliver this for our children. And I know when I go back to Papine, we're going to be receiving some children coming from Gordon Town. this is really historic because many of our children cannot afford the fares to go to school. And this is us saying to all the children across Jamaica that you matter. You matter big time. And so we're making it easy for you to be able to go to school every single day, all the week.
Dana Morris Nixon there, the Minister of Education, and she was speaking with the Finance Minister outside the gates of Mona High School. You saw the sign in the background, and yeah, today is a positive day. It was promised, and the delivery is going well based on what we're hearing.
And for those of you who you're seeking to find out about the routes and the time that you need to be at a particular location, if you check, for example, the Prime Minister's Instagram, you'll see several posts showing you those routes, National Rural School Bus Schedule. So you'll see the areas for departure, you'll see the time that you're leaving, the time for arrival of the buses in the afternoon. So you can check his Instagram, for example, to see those posts.
Let's hear from the Finance Minister.
Surprised this morning to find out that we do have the school buses in Kingston as well. So I was able to ride with students who are going to Mona High School, Mona Heights Primary, JC, all in the constituency of St. Andrew Eastern. So it's a great pleasure. Now we go to Papillion to ensure that those students get on their way into other parishes. This is obviously a significant benefit for our students all across Jamaica. Gone are the days when there was such uncertainty about how they get to school and the cost of getting to school. This government has made it easier for students to get to school. They've taken the transport issue off the table, and it can only get better from here. We are going to perfect it all across the island, and this is a staple in the education system, transportation for our students. And from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, I am glad that we're here, that we're able to finance this endeavor, and you know that there will continue to be budget space for transportation for our students.
All right. So yeah, two ministers there: Finance, Favour Williams; Education, Dana Morris Dixon; and of course the Transport Minister at the center of it all. He said this several months ago that by September 8th, they'll be ready to roll, and roll they certainly are. That's the front page.